Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. President Trump spent the day shuttling between the sites of the two latest gun massacres in America and hurling juvenile insults at his political opponents while in transit from one to the other. After a stop in Dayton, Trump then visited El Paso, Texas, where the shooter expressed his explicit intent to target and kill Hispanics to stop what he called an invasion, echoing the exact same word the president himself has used repeatedly. This afternoon, Democratic presidential frontrunner Vice President Joe Biden gave a speech in which he pointed out the insidious double game the president likes to play.
It's both clear language and in code. This president has fanned the flames of white supremacy in this nation. His low energy, vacant-eyed mouthing of the words written for him, condemning white supremacists this week, I don't believe fooled anyone.
It's not just the president who spews hate and racist fear-mongering without dealing with the consequences. It's Trump TV as well, specifically Tucker Carlson, doing the exact same thing, though admittedly with a defter touch, night after night after night.
How precisely is diversity our strength? Ilhan Omar is living proof that the way we practice immigration has become dangerous to this country. Mexico has helped its citizens to break our federal laws. It's done that for years. That's what it looks like when a hostile foreign power interferes in your democracy. They don't buy Facebook ads that nobody sees. Why would they? They try to change the demographics of your country. What about us? What about our country? We're being invaded. It's going to overwhelm our country and change it completely and forever. And our viewers should know that.
It's not at all surprising that Carlson finds a very receptive audience among people like, for instance, the neo-Nazi website The Daily Stormer, whose founder, Carlson, literally our greatest ally. He earns the praise of former KKK leader David Duke, who tweeted just today, "Tucker is right. White supremacy is a Zio media conspiracy theory." Tucker Carlson tells his overwhelmingly white audience the country is theirs, diversity is a threat, immigrants are invading, and then turns to say with a straight face, white supremacy? What white supremacy?
If you were to assemble a list, a hierarchy of concerns, of problems this country faces, where would white supremacy be on the list? Right up there with Russia, probably. It's actually not a real problem in America. The combined membership of every white supremacist organization in this country, would they be able to fit inside a college football stadium?
Carlson, like the president that he apologizes for, knows what he's doing. In this case, it's a clumsy little bait and switch in which he argues the only problem is a relatively small number of people that are members of a white supremacist organization. But as far as we know, the killer in El Paso wasn't a member of an organization, and the killer at the Pittsburgh synagogue wasn't a member of an organization, and the people throughout this country who get up in the faces of immigrants and people of color and scream at them to go back to their country, who berate people in gas stations because they're speaking Spanish, those people aren't members of organizations. The problem isn't white supremacists as some distinct category that only includes David Duke. It is the ideology to which the president and Tucker Carlson himself subscribe, which is that those people don't belong in this country, that it's not theirs, that diversity is a threat, that white people are being replaced. Now, I should say, in Carlson's defense, it's not an act. He really believes these things. If you want a textbook definition of what overt white supremacy looks like, it's this.
How could you salvage Iraq at this point?
I don't, it's beyond our control. I mean, if somehow the Iraqis decided to behave like human beings or something. Iraq is a crappy place filled with a bunch of, semi-literate primitive monkeys.
But I just have zero sympathy for them or their culture, a culture where people just don't use toilet paper or forks.
Yeah, sub-literate primitive monkeys. It's not people with swastika tattoos or white hoods that are the problem. It's the belief system that this is a country for white people and that white people are better than non-white people. An act of violence, of mass murder in support of that ideology, like the massacre in El Paso, creates real waves of fear throughout the country, far surpassing the one person who did it. In the wake of this, people are coming forward with their stories of harassment and intimidation and fear that is flowing from this racist ideology. One Latina immigrant telling the New York Times, "It feels like being hunted." It's the ideology that is being pumped into the minds of the viewers of that show on Trump TV every night.